Your body is capable of changes that people spend thousands of dollars chasing through prescriptions, supplements, and medical procedures. And for most metabolically healthy adults, that transformation doesn't start in a lab or a clinic. It starts with something incredibly ordinary, something that's probably sitting in your refrigerator right now. I'm talking about committing to a high-egg breakfast, 5 whole eggs every morning, for the next 30 days. Not as a diet, not as a cleanse, but as a biological signal. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this simple habit can change the way your blood sugar behaves, how your brain processes focus and memory, and how your metabolism decides whether to store fat or burn it. This isn't about calories, and it's definitely not about willpower. It's about giving your body the raw materials it's been quietly missing for years. And before you dismiss this, because of everything you've heard about cholesterol, heart disease, or too much protein, stay with me, because what actually happens inside your body over the next 30 days may be very different from what you were taught to expect. If the idea of eating 5 whole eggs every morning makes you uneasy, you're not imagining that reaction. That discomfort was trained into you. For decades, eggs were framed as a cardiovascular risk, a cholesterol bomb waiting to clog your arteries. Doctors warned against them, headlines demonized them, and entire generations learned to fear a food humans had eaten for thousands of years. But here's what rarely gets mentioned. Those warnings were built on outdated assumptions, not on how the human body actually works. Large population studies following hundreds of thousands of Americans have repeatedly shown that people who eat eggs regularly do not experience higher rates of heart attacks. In many cases, they experience fewer. The problem was never the egg itself. The problem was confusing association with causation and ignoring the body's ability to self-regulate. Eggs didn't suddenly become unhealthy. Our understanding of them simply failed to evolve. And once you see where that fear came from, the rest of this conversation starts to make a lot more sense. Before you even crack your first egg, there's a detail that determines whether this entire experiment actually works or quietly backfires. And it has nothing to do with willpower or discipline. It's about the eggs themselves. Walk into any grocery store in America and you'll see labels everywhere claiming cage-free or free range. Those words sound reassuring, but nutritionally, they don't tell you much. A cage-free hen can still spend its life in a crowded warehouse, never seeing real sunlight. Free range only means there's a door to the outside, not that the bird ever uses it. What matters here is pasture-raised. These chickens live on grass, eat insects, and are exposed to natural light. That environment fundamentally changes the chemistry of the egg. You get higher vitamin D, better omega-3 content, and a dramatically richer antioxidant profile. You can see it the moment you crack one open. Pale yellow yolks signal industrial feed. Deep orange yolks signal nutrient density. And when you're using food to send biological signals, that difference matters more than most people realize. Once the clock starts, the first change most people notice doesn't show up on a scale. It shows up in their head. Within the first 7 days, that constant background noise telling you to eat begins to fade. The mid-afternoon crash where you start thinking about something sweet or another cup of coffee simply doesn't arrive. This isn't discipline kicking in. This is biology recalibrating. Most people in the U.S. are eating plenty of calories, but they're chronically undernourished at the cellular level. A typical breakfast built around toast, cereal, or a muffin sends blood sugar climbing fast. Your pancreas responds by flooding your bloodstream with insulin to bring it back down, and insulin doesn't just lower blood sugar, it overshoots. When levels drop too far, your body releases stress hormones demanding more food, more fuel, right now. That cycle can repeat every few hours. A breakfast built around 5 whole eggs changes that equation. You're looking at roughly 350 calories, but they're dense with about 30 grams of high-quality protein and roughly 25 grams of natural fat. That specific combination stabilizes blood sugar, keeps insulin low, and flips on powerful satiety signals telling your brain, we're good. Energy becomes steady, hunger stops negotiating. And for the first time in a long time, your body isn't begging for more. By the second week, the changes stop being subtle, and they stop being physical. This is where most people notice something shift upstairs. Tasks that used to feel mentally heavy suddenly feel lighter. Reading becomes easier. Concentration lasts longer. That fog that made you reread the same sentence 5 times without absorbing it starts to lift. This isn't motivation, it's chemistry. Eggs are the richest natural source of a nutrient called choline, and most Americans are chronically deficient without realizing it. Your brain uses choline to produce acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter responsible for learning, memory, and focus. When acetylcholine runs low, your brain feels sluggish, scattered, and overwhelmed. 5 whole eggs deliver roughly 600 to 700 milligrams of choline a day, enough to noticeably change how your brain functions. At the same time, pasture-raised eggs provide DHA, a highly bioavailable omega-3 fat your brain relies on to maintain the structure of its neurons. Think of it like upgrading the insulation around electrical wiring. Signals get cleaner, faster, and more reliable. Many people report calmer moods, sharper reflexes, and less background anxiety. And there's another benefit quietly building that most people don't connect to breakfast at all. By this point, most people are focused on mental clarity and steady energy, but something else is happening quietly in the background. It shows up in your eyes and your nervous system, and almost nobody connects it to what they eat for breakfast. Those deep orange yolks contain 2 powerful antioxidants called lutein and zeaxanthin. These compounds don't just float around your body, they accumulate directly in your retina, where they act like internal sunglasses. In a world where we stare at screens for hours every day, that protection matters more than ever. Blue light exposure creates oxidative stress inside the eye, accelerating fatigue and long-term degeneration. Lutein and zeaxanthin filter that damage before it becomes a problem. At the same time, these nutrients support communication between your eyes and your brain, improving visual processing speed and reducing strain. Many people notice their eyes feel less tired by the end of the day, even if their screen time hasn't changed. This is what happens when nutrition stops being abstract and starts supporting specific biological systems. And as these systems stabilize, your body becomes ready for a shift that goes far beyond focus or vision. By the 3rd week, something becomes obvious if you're paying attention. Your body starts responding differently to effort. Workouts feel more productive. Recovery happens faster. And if fat loss is your goal, you may notice your body changing even if the scale barely moves. This is where the protein conversation finally gets interesting. Not all protein behaves the same once it enters your body. When you eat protein, it's broken down into amino acids, and your body decides how much of that gets used to build or repair tissue. A surprising amount from shakes and powders is simply burned off as energy. This is where whole eggs stand apart. Eggs have one of the highest biological values of any food, meaning your body can actually use a much larger percentage of what you eat. Think of it like construction materials. You can buy warped lumber and waste most of it, or you can use precision-cut boards that fit exactly where they're needed. The yolk plays a critical role here. It contains nutrients that help your body utilize the protein in the white. Remove it, and you lower the efficiency of the entire system. This matters even more as we age, when muscle loss quietly accelerates. Preserving muscle isn't about aesthetics. It's about strength, resilience, and long-term independence. By week 4, this is usually when concern starts creeping in from the outside. A friend brings it up, a family member raises an eyebrow, someone mentions cholesterol, and suddenly the conversation shifts. The fear sounds logical, but it's built on a misunderstanding. Your body manufactures between 1,000 and 3,000 milligrams of cholesterol every single day because it needs it to survive. Cholesterol isn't optional. It's the structural material for your cell membranes, the raw ingredient for tissue repair, and the foundation for every major hormone in your body. When dietary cholesterol goes up, your liver simply produces less. When intake drops, production rises. This system self-regulates far more intelligently than most people realize. What actually causes damage is chronic inflammation. When arteries are inflamed by stress, smoking, or poor quality diets, cholesterol shows up as part of the repair process. Blaming cholesterol for heart disease is like blaming firefighters for the fire because they're always on the scene. Hormones depend on this process too. Testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, all of them begin as cholesterol. When your supply is chronically low, hormone output suffers. What many people interpret as aging is often just a shortage of raw materials. And this is where nuance matters most. This is where the cholesterol conversation usually gets oversimplified. Most people are told to fear LDL as a single number, but that number hides an important detail. LDL particles come in different sizes. Small, dense LDL particles can penetrate artery walls and contribute to problems. Large, buoyant LDL particles are far less concerning because they simply don't behave the same way. Whole food sources of fat and cholesterol tend to shift LDL toward these larger, safer particles, even if total LDL rises slightly. That distinction rarely makes it into casual conversations or standard lab summaries. There's another layer most people never hear about at all. Roughly 40% of the population carries a genetic variation that affects how the body processes homocysteine, a compound linked to arterial inflammation when it builds up. If this pathway struggles, cardiovascular risk increases regardless of cholesterol levels. Clearing homocysteine requires specific B vitamins, and choline in forms your body can actually use. This is where real food quietly outperforms many supplements. Pasture-raised eggs provide these nutrients in bioavailable forms, supporting detoxification and repair at the cellular level. And when those pathways are supported, the entire risk picture changes. All of the benefits we've talked about so far can disappear in less than a minute if you cook your eggs the wrong way. Heat and oxygen matter. Cholesterol, healthy fats, and delicate antioxidants in the yolk are sensitive to high temperatures. When eggs are blasted on high heat until the yolks turn gray and rubbery, the cholesterol oxidizes. Oxidized cholesterol is inflammatory, and that's the exact opposite of what we want. The goal isn't raw eggs. It's gentle cooking. Soft-boiled eggs are ideal. Poached eggs work beautifully. Over-easy keeps the yolk intact. If you prefer scrambled eggs, keep the heat low. Add a tablespoon of grass-fed butter, crack the eggs directly into the pan, and stir slowly. The moment soft, glossy curds form, take them off the heat. They should look creamy, almost like custard, not dry or stiff. That texture tells you the fat structure is preserved and the nutrients remain usable. Small details here create big biological differences. After 30 days, what's changed isn't just your breakfast. It's the way your body responds to the world around it. Hunger no longer controls your decisions. Energy doesn't spike and crash. Your brain feels clearer, your mood more stable, and your recovery more predictable. This wasn't a diet. It was a recalibration. You didn't force your body into submission. You gave it the signals it had been missing and let biology do what it's designed to do. Insulin sensitivity improves. Inflammation quiets down. Hormonal pathways finally have the raw materials they need to function properly. And maybe the most important shift happens quietly in your mindset. You stop seeing your body as broken. You stop chasing hacks. You realize it was never about eating less. It was about feeding yourself correctly. If this way of thinking resonates with you, you're not someone looking for quick fixes. You're someone who wants to understand how your body actually works. If this video helped connect those dots, hit like, subscribe for more deep dives like this, and tell me in the comments, are you going soft-boiled, over-easy, or scrambled?